And hello. First of all, it has been quite some time since you and I have shared the airwaves, or the is that do you call it the airwaves? Since we have been on the show together. So, Justin, hey, it's good to see you.
Hey, how old are you to talk about airwaves? My video did it again. It was so good. What? I'm loading like 12 web pages. Hold on.
You know, I I, I am going
There we are.
to I'm going to submit for a new laptop for you. I'm going to have the group. We're going to all chip in, and it's not going to have Linux on it. It's just going to be it's going to be Windows or Mac. That's it. Mac OS.
I
Nope.
am debating just getting a Windows machine just for streaming because sometimes this is like I can't promise it's a Linux thing because I don't know, but I probably just have way too. I should probably just close some things too.
But I know the second you start closing things, I know you're going to freeze again. So
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna leave it now. Like
we,
we're in for it.
we're committed, and this is what we're going with. So, um, first of all, as I said, it's really good to see you, and good to be here with you on the internet waves, on the fibers. But so today we had a really cool idea, and we were talking, you and I, and he thought, what could we do before reInvent to just highlight a lot of the things that have gone on, right? A lot of the releases we've had between our container services. We've done some really cool things over the past year, and we thought, why don't we take today and let's have a pre-invent show. And by the way, that was Justin, all the credit, pre-invent show. That was
Oh,
all
I heard it
Justin's
somewhere
idea.
else. I am not original. That and actually I didn't even till today notice the title of the show. Do you notice the title of the show also says recap? And like
Yeah,
it's in there twice, and I just completely I should have done better. Yeah, I'm sorry.
it's okay, Justin. You did great. And by the way, so Justin and I were just talking about this.
Yes.
So amazing that containers from the couch pillow. So yes, so the way you would have received one of these is, by the way, not being one of the first folks to actually like be on the show and help create it, because I don't have one, but you get it. It was from KubeCon, right?
Yeah, they were at the AWS booth at KubeCon. There was a sign up form because we didn't have them at the booth. We didn't actually have them in time, so we were shipping them directly. If you signed up at the booth, you could get one shipped to you. So it was exciting. I heard there might be something similar at reInvent. If you're going to reInvent, there may also be a sign up for some containers from the couch pillows because we have a containers modern app serverless section of the AWS on the show floor. So come find it at reInvent, and there might be some similar containers from the couch stuff for you.
Yes, and that's a good call out. So there is going to be like a serverless modern app development container space at reInvent. And if you haven't met Farah, she's the one who organized the whole thing. She's amazing. Like, she's just done so many cool things with marketing and all this stuff out there. So I'm sure it's going to be really cool. Justin, why don't you tell us how like the format, like let's before we get into it, this was again a really great idea. Walk us through what we're going to do today.
So, well, I mean, first of all, to the point here, the pillow is bulky. Like, I actually thought afterwards we should have neck pillows. Like, that would actually be even better, is like containers from the couch neck pillows, because then you just travel with it. So, anyway, but the format, Adam and I were going through the list of everything container related AWS, and not specifically like ECS, EKS, but like there's a lot of other services that also have container interactions and things you can do with containers. Amplify has stuff, Lambda has stuff. There's so many cool things, but we really wanted to focus in on like, okay, the show can't be 3 hours long. Adam and I don't remember everything that we announced, and I'm lagging again. And this is okay. We're catching up. We don't remember everything that we also were involved with in 2021. So we want to look at just 2021, not going all the way to reInvent last year, because there's a ton of stuff if we incorporate that. So looking at 2021, what were the container related launches that we had? And the list just kept getting bigger. And we're just like, which ones did we think were cool? And it was still just way too big. And so we're like, okay, we have to narrow this down. And so if anyone used to watch, David Letterman had his like top 10 countdown lists. And so we're doing a countdown list today of the top 10 container announcements, launches, features, whatever it is that happened that we thought were just like super cool. Some of them have containers from the couch shows. Some of them have standalone stuff, but we're actually going to finally close out all of the tabs I've had open for 2021, and we're going to count down by closing out Chrome tabs here for every single announcement that we have. So we got 10 announcements. I think I have 12 tabs because we merged 2 of them together. We cheated a little bit, but in general, we're gonna close out 1 tab. So at the end of this show, I will have 0 tabs, and I'm closing a Chrome window. So it'll be very satisfying, and as I mentioned to Adam earlier, we will bring closure to everything that's all the container announcements for this year.
So it's proof that you too can close all your Chrome tabs and live a good life. So why don't we? Okay, so let's get right into it. So I'm gonna be a fancy producer here, and I'm gonna get us to the screen, and we're gonna start with number 10, which is ECS exec. So this was, I don't know if, I don't know exactly the data here. Okay. But yeah, yes, Chrome windows can be closed.
Despite what everyone thinks, Chrome windows are not immutable. You can close them.
It's true. It's just hard to do it. Oh, but you know what? It looks like we, that's funny. Funny people in the chat today. So ECS exec, we had a lot of requests for this feature. Basically, there's a huge user base for AWS Fargate on ECS. And if you're not familiar with Fargate, this is just a way to run your containers without you as the user having to manage the underlying compute. So the virtual machine that your containers run on, fully managed, you don't have to manage that. You just focus on deploying your container. AWS manages the underlying components. So one of the biggest asks from customers was, I need to be able to exec into the container. I need to be able to just get insight. Things go wrong, right? Things can happen. So you want to be able to get in there and just get some insight. So ECS exec enables that functionality. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Justin?
I wanted to add that I'm closing more tabs so I don't lag as much. But yes, actually, the cool things for me, I wanted ECS exec so bad years ago when I was just like, we had lots of ECS containers. I was like, you sometimes just need a shell. A terminal inside that environment is the fastest way you can debug something, and this gets you there. The cool thing I thought about this specifically, ECS exec uses the session manager plugin, so it's actually using a WebSocket to open the terminal inside the container. And adjacent to this launch, the SSM library for the agent also went open source, which means that if you wanted to build a custom way to exec into your containers, that session manager plugin is written in Go, and you can actually go get it on GitHub and use it inside your own library for whatever tooling you're doing, and do similar things to improve upon, the UX or whatever integrations you want for your tools.
Yeah. And so, with Fargate, I didn't mention this, but obviously the host is fully managed underneath, so you don't have access, right? In a traditional environment where you're running EC2 instances or virtual machines that you land your containers, you can SSH on, or you can then exec into the container, or, if you're using Kubernetes, kube control. So this just makes it easier for folks. And in addition to that session manager plug, in production environments, we generally don't want folks jumping into containers, right? We want to keep everything. We don't want to be accessing, SSHing all the time if we can avoid it. But if you have to, there is all your commands are logged. You can enable logging. So everything you do on that container is logged to an S3 bucket or to a CloudWatch logs group. So from a security perspective, you get insight into that. So
And making that environment safe. Man, I'm so laggy. I have to stop looking. I'm also ready just to turn off my camera because this is just useless at this point.
I prefer laggy, Justin. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you want to be the only person. And I catch up sometimes. And it's just, I don't know why. I'm going to just format another computer, and we're going to just use a streaming only computer. But I don't like to tell people don't SSH into prod, because you have to get those fast feedback loops. Sometimes it'll do things a lot better for you. Not everyone logs everything. You're dealing with unknown unknowns at some point, and being able to look into it more is just required. And so having a faster feedback loop is important. I actually just reread the Google Borg paper from 10 years ago or something like that. And one of the callouts in there was they actually had a Borg SSH command where they would get people into their containers with an SSH. And I'm like, 10 years ago, people were like, don't do it. And I'm like, Google did it right here. Like they call it out as like, that's a benefit to allow people to debug things. Not every container is production. Not everything that runs in ECS is production. Being able to learn those things faster and debug them faster makes your development cycle faster. And so I'm a big fan of just like enabling people to do that faster. And like you mentioned, having audits and restrictions and IAM rules around that to say like, it's not wide open. Only only certain users can access these containers is a good way to do it.
Yeah. I do think, I feel like you and I could talk about this for an hour alone, because I think both sides, there's really good points, right? And you just got to be careful, like anything.
Yeah.
You don't exec into a container in a production environment to do development work, right? Like there is some level of like, we got to be careful here and not just go crazy. But anyways, very good points. So,
and one other thing we have to be careful of is our time, because we're supposed to spend 5 minutes on each of these, and so far we spent too much on one. So we're going to move to the next announcement here. So closing the first tab. There it is. Boom. All right. So next one, Ecr Application Rules. When Ecr Replication came out with cross-region, cross-account Ecr Replication, simplified so many just like if loops in Jenkins and all these different like ways to deploy the same container to different places. And you're just like, actually, we could just do that on the ECR side. But it was like a all or nothing approach when it first launched. And we knew that people wanted to say like, hey, I want to do this based on some sort of value or some sort of match, and say like, oh, actually, I don't need everything replicated to every region or every other account. Let me select which images I need. And so this announcement to me was making ECR replication usable in a normal environment, in like an actual live environment, to say like, hey, I need these containers everywhere for faster access, for disaster recovery in some sense, but also just to simplify my deployment chain. And this announcement I thought was just great. Now, to me, like it flew under the radar for a lot of people. I still get questions about it, and it's just like, oh, but I can't do this. And it's like, well, actually, you can. And it came out. What is the date on this? September. So it was only a couple months old, and it's something that I think is just a good ad for anyone that has a container registry. If you're running your own, some people ran their own just for some of these features, and ECR has them now.
100%. The only thing I'm going to add to this is just to add on to what you said. So basically all those bash scripts, that you had to write to make this all work, all that custom automation you had to write, you don't have to do it. You don't do it anymore. It's built in. You have your rules. You set it as if you have a build account, that you build and store all your images in, and then you want to replicate to all your accounts, you can do that here. So it's really nice. All right. I think
we're going to make up some time, and we're going to close this one. Ready?
It was such an easy one,
Yeah. It's just like good feature. All right. Awesome. That's what we're here for.
If there's time at the end, we can go back and talk about ECS exec. I'm kidding.
Also, if people at the end, we want to hear what other people thought. If we missed something, tell us what you thought was your favorite container feature.
Yes. It's very possible we missed something.
Oh, we could not fit everything. There were so many improvements to various things. All right, here's the next one. Oh, I covered it. This was the CDK's general availability. I thought I had a Co-Pilot. Wait. Oh, I closed that tab. Adam,
it's okay.
talk about Co-Pilot first.
So, okay. So we've released, AWS Co-Pilot CLI went GA at reInvent last year in 2020. And we've made so many improvements to the Co-Pilot CLI just over the course of the year. Some examples, we've added new patterns. So like a pub sub pattern where the Co-Pilot CLI builds all the queues for you, creates all the rules and the IAM roles and policies to connect everything together for you. And amongst other things. So this is, the Co-Pilot CLI here. So we have done so much over the course of the year. What's great about the Co-Pilot CLI is every time there's a new feature release in ECS with AWS Fargate, usually the Co-Pilot CLI has that feature on day one. So, Fargate spot support for the AWS Co-Pilot CLI. So you can deploy your Fargate tasks at, up to, I think Fargate spot is like 70% cheaper up to, and so on. So a lot of work's been done there, and the tool's just getting better and better every day. So
I don't know how we crammed these three things into one item, but it was like Co-Pilot, CDK, and CDKs. Uh, all three of those things have just had so many improvements, and some of them went GA, some of them have new languages. Almost all of them will have some new higher level feature for like making it easier to use tools. And I guess you can consider this like the infrastructure as code announcement, where just like there were so many improvements across the board for all of these that to us it was just like how you're using AWS tools, how you're using containers oftentimes is this interface. This piece, you're doing it with Copilot or CDK or Terraform, which I think Terraform had a bunch of announcements for CDK support as well this year. We don't have all of those links open, but I know that it's like this is just a bunch of them together. The one that I was really love is in October, CDKs went GA for 1.0 for the main constructs, and then also CDKs Go support. So if you're writing Go, you can also build your Kubernetes manifest with Go and compile it or whatever, like export out to Kubernetes manifest files to apply to your cluster. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there's been a ton of ECS updates in the CDK, a ton of EKS updates in the CDK. And again, these are just, as you said, higher level constructs, a lot of opinion built in, a lot of automation abstracted, underneath. So yeah, we've come a long way with those tools.
Do you know the answer to this one?
I don't. That is a good question. And this is for the Copilot CLI, right?
For Copilot.
Yeah, we can look into
and
that.
I thought it depended on if you're using BuildX for the new, I don't remember which version of the Docker file, because I know at the top of the Docker file, you can supply your syntax that you're going to be using. And then depending on if you're using BuildKit or Docker builds or BuildX are three separate things for how you're building containers with Docker. So I think a lot of it might depend, and I don't know how Copilot's calling that build functionality by default.
Yeah. So we check out the repo here, and I'm going to just pop this in chat here. But yeah, check it out there, and then you can always reach out to me on Twitter, and I can find out from the team and get that answer specifically, though.
Because and actually, next year we do need to cover new Docker file features, because there's a lot of cool stuff. Like here docs are supported.
Here doc was like huge. I know, yeah, that was the biggest one to me. Holy cow.
And even, have you ever built a container from a remote Git repo? Like no. You can just specify like Docker build GitHub URL, and it'll build the container without ever checking out the code locally. Like so many cool features have been landing in Docker for this sort of stuff dope. That, yeah, I think it's great. We need to have a show to just go over the new features.
I concur.
But for now, we're closing tabs. We're closing 2 tabs now. And the next feature, I'm going to make sure I know what's coming up. There it is.
Nice.
Eks Connector. This launched in preview at the same time of EKS Anywhere. And it allows you to connect any Kubernetes cluster, not just EKS Anywhere, but any Kubernetes cluster into the EKS console. Right now, that supports viewing your clusters in one place, being able to understand sort of what's running in them. In the future, it'll bring more EKS features to non-EKS clusters. If you have something on-prem and you want to use, say, managed add-ons, great way to do it, because managed add-ons are an EKS feature. You can say, I need to, figure out what add-ons I have in my cluster, and you'll be able to control that through this sort of connector style. That's how we're getting people to have an external cluster that's self-managed, run anyway. As long as it's a conformant Kubernetes cluster, it doesn't matter how it was provisioned. You can run that anywhere you want and then connect it back. It's separate from EKS Anywhere, although it does work with EKS Anywhere as well. But we have folks connecting in their GKE clusters, folks connecting in AKS, all of the other Kubernetes clusters you might be running. You can connect your local kind cluster. That's how I was running it. I run a kind cluster on my laptop, connect it back into the console, and be able to see things and modify it. And so we have a lot of plans for Eks Connector. It just went GA last week. I think it was Thursday last week. So it is generally available. This announcement was from September, which was the preview for it. So if you're looking to have a centralized view of all your Kubernetes cluster in an on-prem hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environment, like this is a way to do it with Kubernetes.
That's super dope. That's really cool. I don't have anything else to say there.
And the fact that it just works with any Kubernetes cluster, I thought was like, when I saw we were building this, I was like, this is great, because you often have to go to 10 different places to know what's running where and get a kube config file. Like all those things are pretty complicated right now. And so hopefully we're simplifying some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And
All
I
right,
feel
close
like
another
that's
tab.
another one that was kind of like under the radar. Like this is a pretty big release that
it definitely, because it was with other big announcements, it kind of got lost in some of that, where it's like, oh, everyone's talking about EKS Anywhere, but also it's like, hey, this connector thing is really neat.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, here we go. Close another tab. Ready?
Okay, we did it. What number are we on?
I don't know. This is number 6.
Number 6. So Mtls and App Mesh. So this was a feature we announced. I guess so. The feature went generally available. Is this October when this? No, I thought it was a little sooner.
October.
My goodness. This year it just feels like March of 2020. I don't know, man. I've lost it. But so just MTLS enabled in App Mesh. This is a big one. A lot of customers were asking for this. Having that trust between your your containers talking to each other through the mesh, super important. So this was a big announcement.
There was another one with App Mesh earlier this year that I forgot to open the link for, which was Canary Deployments in ECS as well. So if you were doing App Mesh with ECS, you could do Canary Deployments at the App Mesh layer. So you say networking layer, like, oh, I want 10% of my traffic to go over here at the sidecar layer. Do you remember that one?
I don't. I got to find that one. See, you found something that I forgot about already.
Yeah, Nate wrote the blog post, and I remember seeing it. I was like, "Oh, that was a cool feature." I was like, "We should." And we're picking 10, and this is hard.
Yeah, it's just this is what happens when you have to select. And by the way, I feel like we're going really fast. We're gonna have plenty of time at the end here.
Now we're going too fast, and so we can slow it down. But hey, congrats on steering committee for Spiffy. That's really cool.
Nice.
And that is I need to do just like a dedicated Spiffy show as well to like tell people how it works, how you can get that secure identity basically all the way down to what's running in your container. Super cool.
Yes, and I will get that blog post shared in here shortly.
I don't dare open any more tabs.
Don't, or else we'll lose you for good here.
I'll be stuck in 2020. My lag will be so bad.
All right, I got the blog. Let me just post it in the chat so everyone can. Is that the one in the multi? Yes. Okay. So this was the blog here. I'll post it up here as well.
Type it real fast. If you can read that and type it, and
yeah. It's in chat too. So don't worry. You copy paste. You don't have to do that. We're good. Screenshots.
Number 5 is next. I'm gonna let you do number 5.
Number 5 is.
I gotta find my mouse. Hold on. Where'd it go?
Number 5. Drum roll.
Ready? Here we go.
Yes. So the one-click Ecr Run Option. So in our Ecr public gallery, this is our public registry with Ecr. You have the ability to, with one click of a button, launch that container to AWS App Runner in just a matter of seconds. And I feel like, is Justin going to show us?
I'm going to go to it. I'm going to do it. I don't want EKS Anywhere. I want App Runner.
So yeah, this is... And App Runner, by the way, we're not going to talk too much about that because spoiler alert, that's in our list. But there it is. So just one click of a button. Why don't you just click it, huh?
I don't know if I'm auth to any of my accounts right now. So yeah. I gotta jump into.
Gotta log in. But so basically, this is a great way for folks who you just want to run through a test. There's a container image you want to just play around with, run it live. You can run it. It's, again, one click takes you to the App Runner console, another click, and your container is deployed. And it's
if you're authenticated.
If you're authenticated, great point. Make sure you're authenticated to your AWS account. Otherwise, you can't launch it anywhere. But yeah, so this and with App Runner, you're not managing clusters or any infrastructure. It's all fully managed. You just pass it the container image like Justin just did. So he clicked the button, he clicked next, click create and deploy. And then in maybe let's say 3 to 5 minutes, we should have that container
the URL. Yep. So and one of the cool things about how this was implemented, which if anyone notices, if you go to the actual gallery and look at the link, oh gosh, hold on. There it is. this link has a bunch of embedded like parameters, and that's essentially how we're deep linking into App Runner. So you can actually create your own deep link into an App Runner, like launch my app from your own registry. Like you could link this to something else as well. Like we're building it into ECR Public as it's a feature for a lot of these containers that we have running or have available in the public, but there's nothing like special sauce here about like, oh, like only ECR could do this. It's like, no, actually, if you're authenticated into AWS, you could do this yourself too, which I think is so cool. Because if you just look at all these parameters, like we're linking out to, you know, different information on like how they got variables, port to be open, that sort of stuff.
That's a really good point. That, you know, you could just build your own, you know, custom, you know, based on your container images in house, and have folks just launch them, and, you know, for quick testing and fast feedback.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get. It's still coming up, but I have the URL, but I don't have it running yet. So I'm going to close these.
Well, that's okay. I was going to say, because we're going to talk about it.
Oh
soon,
no!
so...
The went to the in tab. I skipped ahead.
Whoa! Oh, all right, let's pretend no one saw that. No one saw that. We're good.
It's a good thing I'm lagging from last year. So
okay, so this next one coming up is really cool. And
what was the next one? Oh, okay,
I'm not going to say. I'm going to wait.
There you go.
Bottle Rocket support. So first of all, Bottle Rocket OS. When did we GA Bottle Rocket? Was that reInvent last year?
No, it was before reInvent.
It was before.
Bottle Rocket was out before. Yeah, it was.
But
it was
GA'd. Maybe it was GA'd before. But
GA for ECS. GA for EKS was August of last year. Wow, how do I remember that? I don't know. But that was like, I did the demo for the GA, or the blog post for the GA for EKS in the announcement of ECS preview, and at reInvent last year it GA, or just before.
Got it. Perfect. So Bottle Rocket OS is a container specific, you know, it's an operating system built to run containers. So, you know, I would say with Bottle Rocket OS, security is like primary, you know, job zero. That's what one of the huge benefits of Bottle Rocket OS. You know, least privilege. You know, you don't even SSH into the box. Like if you want to access you want to get access to the Bottle Rocket host, there's a special container you have to exec into to get that access. Like it's very secure.
Can you find? We have an old Containers from the Couch show talking about the Bottle Rocket fundamentals, so we should link that. I know we did another Bottle Rocket show about the EKS updater. I don't know if we did one for the ECS updater. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think we did. I don't think we did. Yeah.
And then we've had a couple other Bottle Rocket specific topics at Container Days, and with EKS Anywhere, we launched the VMware variant for Bottle Rocket, which also supports, you know, obviously Bottle Rocket running on VMware now. So if you have that, if you're running it with EKS Anywhere, great, it's the default. If you want to just also run it in VMware, you can.
And so this is again, that link's going to be hard to see, but yeah, so that was the show where we just introduced Bottle Rocket OS, talked about it, and kind of dove into the features. But so one of the cool features about Bottle Rocket is the way it updates. So with ECS, we GA'd Bottle Rocket support. So now you can launch your containers on a Bottle Rocket operating system, a host running Bottle Rocket OS. And we also released an updater, I don't want to say code, but I mean, it's basically, it's a CloudFormation template, and it's a series of basically SSM, you know, documents that basically will automatically update your Bottle Rocket hosts when a new version comes out. So it rolls them out in a safe way. It's safe updates, so you don't lose your cluster, you know, instantly, and so on. So actually, I did a cool tweet thread on that. I'm going to find my tweet thread and share that, because I kind of talked about it, and also I have a demo that I wrote in CDK as well. So I'll share those.
And one of the cool things I think about this updater is we handle it two different ways for two different schedulers, right? In the ECS case, we're doing all native AWS services. It's CloudFormation with SSM documents. And we say, okay, SSM is Systems Manager is a great way to manage operating systems. It's designed to manage systems. It can keep them updated, and it can also subscribe to, hey, SNS topics, or I forget which one, whichever topic, to tell it, hey, there's a new release. And then it can say, okay, now I need to roll this out, and I'm going to keep working until that's rolled out. In the Kubernetes sense, we have an operator that runs inside the cluster. And so we bring all of the same functionality that you get with CloudFormation on the ECS side, and we're doing that natively with CRDs and the Kubernetes API inside of EKS. And so you can have both, and the same operating system is still updating the same way, just the mechanism behind how it gets triggered is the piece that's actually important, and the thing that actually stores a lot of the smarts on how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the other, this number, whenever on number 4 is rolling in 2 pieces too, because the updater was one part of it. But also, if you just want to throw away the nodes and not worry about them, we also support managed node groups with BottleRocket natively now in EKS. So you can have a managed node group using BottleRocket. And in this case, your managed node group, there's nothing in here specifically that's doing in-place upgrades for machines. This is doing more of the traditional, I suppose, traditional EC2 style, throw it away and get a new one style with managed node groups. So you could have the updater do something along the lines of, hey, I want to do some of this in place. But with managed node groups, it actually handles version upgrades. When the Kubernetes upgrade changes, your managed node groups will also upgrade with that version. So you can say, I will have a 121 cluster now, API service 121. All of my managed node groups can also upgrade with Kubernetes. And so it keeps those things in sync and not doing the same thing as far as in-place upgrades like we're doing with the operator.
Which is super cool. Managed node groups are amazing for EKS. I'm such a big fan of managed node groups. And now when you have BottleRocket in there, it's just that full integration. You're using a container, a purpose-built container operating system to run your pods. It's just super cool. And it's all fully managed with the managed node groups. So great feature. Okay, I was trying to find my tweet. I couldn't find. Oh, I just found it. So I'm going to share this. And then what do you say we jump into the next feature? I don't see any questions right now, so I'm going to just share this little tweet thread where I kind of just talked about BottleRocket OS, the updater, and so on. So check that out.
There we go. Next one. I went early. There it is.
So this was a big one. I said, by the way, I've said that for every single one. I'm so basic. But again, a lot of customer asks around this, and frankly, to put the word, to say Windows and serverless in the same sentence is a little crazy. I know, serverless, the definition, you can have a debate on that for hours and days, but we now support running Windows containers on ECS with AWS Fargate. So what that means is you can launch Windows containers without actually having to manage the underlying Windows host. Do you understand how amazing that is, Justin?
If I don't have to register Windows again in my life, that is a win right there. Like, just give me the container, let me run whatever Windows application, especially off the shelf stuff, right? Like, that's the power of containers, is the fact that you can bundle pretty much anything into the container. And if you're not building it from scratch, if you just say, like, this is the thing that I have to run, but I don't want a fleet of Windows machines. And especially when you're talking about, auto upgrades and security patching of the underlying host, it's a huge win.
Yeah, Patch Tuesday, right? Like that's not something you have to think about anymore. So there was a ton of ask around this, and yeah, we just released this in October, and we also have a Containers from the Couch show where we dove into the feature and actually deployed a Windows container.
Is that this one?
Fargate. No, so this is the other one. So now going along, we were talking about Co-Pilot earlier, and how generally Co-Pilot, if it's a Fargate release for ECS, Co-Pilot generally tries to keep feature parity. And so day one, we had support in AWS Co-Pilot to build and launch Windows containers. So we have 2 blogs here. One that just walks through how to deploy your Windows containers to Fargate if you're using the ECS console. And then the other, which frankly, if you're not, containers, or you're relatively new to containers, you're just getting started in the space, I highly recommend checking out the Co-Pilot CLI. And now if you're you're using Windows and you're new to containers, Co-Pilot CLI is going to help you get those containers deployed quickly without you having to think about building all of the resources and components around those containers. So very cool release.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready for the next one?
All right.
We're already down to number 2. We got 15 minutes left, 17 minutes left of this stream, and we're down to number 2. But I think the next topic, especially, we can talk for at least 10 minutes on without even worrying about that. So let's drum roll to the number 2 release of 2021.
That was a drum roll.
I heard it. It was good.
So, okay. So it looks like we're starting with ECS Anywhere. So the Anywhere, let's just say the Anywheres, right? Like we had 2 really big releases. Now ECS Anywhere, again, my dates are all off, but I think ECS Anywhere we GA'd in reInvent last year, right? Am I crazy? Or did we just announce it?
It was announced. It went GA this year. That was this year. ECS Anywhere went GA, which also added a bunch of functionality like GPU support and some other functionality. So it's like there's a lot of features that came out in ECS Anywhere, which was kind of where we're bundling this. I'm calling out the GPU container applications on ECS Anywhere specifically because that launched this year, even though ECS Anywhere was announced last year. Yeah. If you have GPUs on-prem and you're trying to do workloads, especially if you're doing workloads with GPUs, most likely you have a bunch of data that you're crunching. You're doing machine learning, you're doing something with data. And in a lot of cases, that data lives on-prem because that's where it was either created or collected or something along those lines where you say, hey, this is where my data lives. I need my compute to live with it. And in that case, you can have containerized applications that also use GPUs to crunch that data on-prem in ECS Anywhere, which I think is obviously going to solve problems for people doing this at scale and already have investment in GPUs and data centers. And this is enabling all those features, which I think is it's a huge, I don't want to say just a huge win again, but if you're using this, if that's what you need to do, you don't have to worry about always pushing data around and saying like, oh, well, now I need to upload everything to S3. It's like actually just bring the compute down and you orchestrate it with ECS Anywhere.
And yeah, so this GPU release was a big one. And I mean, it's for that exact use case you were talking about, machine learning at, in your data center, at the edge, wherever that is, image processing. We have some really cool customer stories around ECS Anywhere with GPUs. And so this was a big deal for a lot of customers. And with ECS Anywhere, the main thing with ECS Anywhere is you never have to actually manage the control plane. So like the benefit of ECS, one of the main benefits is I never have to think about version upgrades for control plane. I don't have to, rotate instances out or anything like that, or rotate to a new version. It's just the control plane is fully managed. So when you're running your containers in your data center or wherever you're running them with ECS Anywhere, you don't have to deploy the control plane with it. You just have to make sure you have internet connection back to AWS, so the control plane can just get the status of those containers, replace them if needed for deployments, and so on. So, pretty big deal.
And as Adam said, this number 2 announcement is both Anywheres. We're again cheating, yes, and we're rolling them into one because EKS Anywhere launched this year as well, and this one went directly as there was no preview. It's an open source project. The APIs are still in alpha, but the software itself and functionality, production clusters are already welcome to be running with EKS Anywhere. And this was one that I loved working with because I spent months working on the team to help build this out, figure out how it would work. And then I did a ton of work for the documentation. Like documentation site was myself and a few other people really doing the structure and planning of it, which was great to just try to help people get onboarded to something quickly. But also we're reusing, because it's an open source tool, we're reusing the whole ecosystem of Kubernetes open source tooling as well. So this isn't like something you have to just like forget everything. Like, oh, I'm doing something the Amazon way now, or I'm doing something with proprietary APIs. It's like, no, like we're using Kind, we're using Cluster API, we're using all these features from the general Kubernetes ecosystem, and we're packaging those in a way that bring our operational experience from running EKS hosted for so many people and just saying like, hey, we have a lot of clusters. We know how we like them structured because we found plenty of issues with Kubernetes along the way running it at the scale. And so let's bring that expertise into an on-prem environment and lay it out the way that we think it should be run. And so we give you those defaults, but also allow you to tweak and add things and change some things to run Kubernetes on-prem. And as Adam was mentioning with ECS, this isn't a managed control plane situation where if you don't want the control plane, if you don't want to manage it and you want to do something that is only running worker nodes, then ECS Anywhere is a great option. In this case, this works in fully disconnected environments where you can actually have EKS in an environment you need. Currently, you need internet access to create the cluster, but we're also working on making it so you can create clusters in an offline environment as well. And so in that case, you can have the cluster created and then you can disconnect it. And the API, the data, etcd, the database, and all the worker nodes run in your data center. So if you have on-prem investments, this lets you use them for a lot longer and do a lot more things with it in a way that you can also get support. I've run Kubernetes clusters that were not supported by anyone but myself, and that is not a good idea. I will say that over and over again. If you have business critical applications running on something, you should pay a vendor or bring the expertise in-house. Like those are like your options of how are you going to scale this for a business. And so that's what like with EKS Anywhere, we bring all the AWS operational experience with the Kubernetes open source ecosystem, and we put it together in a way that we think works for a lot of people. And we still have a lot of plans for it in 2022 as well, obviously, ECS Anywhere as well.
That's really fantastic. I mean, it's you know, if you're using Kubernetes, you're using EKS. And by the way, yes, Justin's video occasionally does go off from his audio. We're working on getting him a setup this will never happen again. I'm submitting the internal request right now to get him a MacBook or a Windows. I'll let him choose whatever he wants, but I'm submitting it. No more. But yeah, anyways, very cool use case. You're using Kubernetes, you're using EKS. Now you want to have a very similar experience in the data center, right? Where maybe you have things going on there. This gives you that. So we solve. You know, sometimes people talk about there's a lot of ways you can run containers on AWS, but I think that it's a good thing. We solve a lot of problems that our customers have, and depending on what problem you're trying to solve, there's a good chance we have a solution that can solve that problem for you, or a service. So, okay.
I also want to call out, I made this fancy app for EKS Anywhere. I was quite proud of my
that's impressive.
My ASCII skills that I generated, and it's just an Nginx container, but if you curl it, so it works if you use a browser to go to it and then curl it, you get this text only output. So I was proud of that.
So Justin, let's put it all out there. How long did it take you to perfect this ASCII art?
I mean, I generated the ASCII art. Like there's a bunch of command line tools to generate the actual banner piece of it. So yeah, that wasn't hard. I had to, I kept on playing with the different fonts to make sure it would fit within like an 80 character. Cause as soon as it wrapped, it all looks terrible. So, but this was our example app for EKS Anywhere. So you can go to it in a browser and it shows essentially the same information. My CSS skills are not as good as my text design skills. So,
ASCII art. Put that on the resume.
That's all day.
Number one. Okay. So I think we're ready for our number one.
We're going to close out one more tab. We're going to get one tab open left.
Wow. I can't believe we're going to close all the tabs.
Well, it'll get there. Here we go. Here's the number one container launch for AWS for 2021, according to Adam and I.
According to us. Completely subjective. AWS App Runner. So this was, and you can see in the blog, Justin wrote this is like probably the coolest launch, coolest launch supporting container and code I've ever seen. It was really cool. Justin, why don't you walk us through App Runner and the cool stuff you did?
I mean, App Runner, if you haven't heard of it, I don't know what's going on. You probably haven't been watching this show. App Runner lets you run a container as a web service with just no orchestrator, no nothing. You get automatic scaling. You get automatic TLS. It's serverless. There's no host, there's no servers in your account. You're just running the container and able to say, here's my container, let it run. We already were mentioning earlier, if you're using ECR public, you can have a one-click launch for launching an App Runner app. And it allows you to do things, especially prototyping. And it gives you some unique features, which I thought was really cool. That is different than, say, using Copilots or using Lambda. And the two things when I was thinking of it, when we were working on this launch, was one of the things that App Runner gives you that Lambda does not is you can actually share connections to the container. So I can say how many concurrent connections I want to use for each container. So that's containers can still scale up, but I can also say, send 100 connections, concurrent connections to that container before you scale to the next container. And so each container can reuse some information. And in this case, I wrote the app so that when the app starts, it actually generates this avatar for you, a unique avatar for every application, and then writes it to disk, because you get a little bit of scratch space to write things to disk. And so I can say, hey, all of my connections that come in can reuse this same image over and over again. And I don't have to redo the work to generate it. And I don't have to fetch it from S3. And I don't have to do all this other stuff. It's just a file on disk. And so I should probably stop talking with my hands, because that makes the lag look even worse. But in general, like, I thought that was like a really unique feature where, because we're resharing connections and we don't have to worry about, something going away necessarily, we do minimize the CPU usage when nothing's hitting the application. And we also allow it to have some other like shared memory sticks around, though, which is the other feature that you don't always get inside of these environments, where this example application actually has a Prometheus endpoint. So if you wanted to scrape metrics from it and see how many connections are going on, and also long running time, like Prometheus metrics have over time metrics of how long I've been running, all that sort of stuff. And so you could actually point a Prometheus scraper at the App Runner endpoint, and it'll rotate through containers if you have multiple and scaled up, and it'll get metrics from each one. And so it was a cool thing that I thought of, where it's like memory does stay around. It's not actually destroying the memory. It's not currently scaling to 0. We're keeping one warm, essentially. So you avoid some cold start times, you avoid some other things. And because it's a managed service altogether, it simplifies some of your deployment, where if you look at a Copilot stack to do the same thing, Copilot automates all that stuff, but it still shows up for you. You still get the Route 53 entry, you still get the certificate, you still get the ECS container, environment, you still get the Fargate runtime. All of that stuff is still in your accounts. In this case, the example for this open source app is like, if you look at the CloudFormation, it's like 8 lines or something, because it's just like, here's the container, here's the port, and I don't even remember what else. It was like, that was it, essentially.
Yeah.
It was like the bare minimum of all you need is what port you're going to expose and what container you're going to run, especially if it's a public container. But it also can work with, obviously, private registries. If you have a private ECR, you can give it the IAM access to pull down those container images as well.
And by the way, so you talked about all the things that are managed for you. Yeah, you there's no concept of a cluster to you as a user in App Runner. You have a web app, you have an API, you deploy your API. You're not managing anything. You don't have to think about setting up advanced metrics and to scale. It's all there. You just turn the knobs to make it fit your use case. And did you mention? You may have mentioned it, and I missed it, but you can bring a Docker container, a Docker image to App Runner. So I can say, here's my Docker image, here's the port. Or if you're using the supported languages, which right now I believe it's Node.js and Python, you could just bring your code. You basically just define in a very small definition. It's like a YAML definition, or you can do it in the console. You say, here's how I run my code. Here's the port. And that's it. We'll build the container image for you. We'll deploy the container image for you. So if you don't even want to deal with Docker and container images, you don't have to. So just another.
I always forget to call out the CI/CD portions of it, because it's like more languages are coming, and even there's a roadmap ticket for just straight up Docker file. Like if you have a Docker file in the base of your repo, like we should be able to build that for you. And you don't have to, deal with CI/CD systems. Just like, hey, this is my code, git commit, put a hook in. And a lot of this actually reminds me of Amplify. If people haven't been using Amplify, Amplify does that a lot for front-end applications for static websites. There's a lot of back-end things you can do as well in Amplify. And this is kind of like, in my opinion, more of a container native Amplify, where if you want to package anything as a container, this also does a few extra things like the scale up, scale down, whereas Amplify is using CloudFront. So there's like different trade-offs depending on what applications you're building. But one of the reasons, obviously, that Adam and I are here talking about App Runner is we are used to containers. We build with containers. We like the portability of the containers. And so we like using services that enable that as a first class, option for deployment.
Yeah. And so I think we're getting towards the end here, but I just wanted to add for App Runner, we've released a lot of really cool functionality, like additional support. You can attach IAM roles to your App Runner service. So if you need to talk to like a DynamoDB table or an S3 bucket, you control access through IAM. We have a lot more coming down very soon over the next few months. So keep an eye on App Runner. One of our big, most popular feature requests for App Runner is VPC support. So you can actually talk to resources in a VPC. Right now, you cannot with App Runner, but keep an eye on it because we got a lot of really cool stuff coming.
Calling out here, Pierre Bus. Yeah, basically, like a lot of people have been doing this, right? Like you're automating it, you're still owning a lot of that stack. And in this case with App Runner, all of that just gets hidden from you where you don't need to automate it even, because Copilot will do this for you too. You can have Copilot by default just give you a container on Fargate with a load balancer, with a certificate, with a domain. It's there. You can do it. There's lots of ways to automate this. And it's a great way that a lot of people have been doing it for a long time. And in this case with App Runner, we're just like, actually, we see this pattern so often. Like we could just make this like a single API call and you're done. Like you don't need a stack. You don't need all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I didn't get to close out my last tab.
Oh no, was there?
We have to close it. Like
I gotta go back.
Down to zero. Hold on.
I can't believe I just did that, Justin. Oh my goodness. Like how could I have done? Okay, we're back.
All right, here it goes. Ready? And this is how you close all your tabs in Chrome. There it is.
Wow.
That's it. It was amazing. It was just as satisfying as I thought it would be.
I can't believe I navigated away from that. Unbelievable. So anyways, keep an eye on the roadmap. Our roadmap is public. The GitHub roadmap. I'm going to share that here. If you ever have any, feature requests or, there's something that you really want to see in one of our container services, reach out on the roadmap. And if there's something there, give it a +1, give it a thumbs up.
And tune in for reInvent because reInvent is coming up in 2 weeks. Tons more announcements. We want to do this as a pre-invent show to talk about everything that has come out because that's what we're building to, because reInvent will have a whole bunch more stuff. Adam and I will be doing a show on the Friday of reInvents. It's actually it's an off time for us because we don't typically do Friday shows. So watch out for it on, in YouTube, on Twitch. We'll have a show talking about all the container announcements. I will fix this lag before then, and we'll have a lag-free show all about the container announcements from reInvent as well.
Yes. So have a good rest of your couple of weeks until we see you again. But if you're at reInvent, definitely. I won't be there. I don't think Justin's going, but we'll be available remotely. So
not in person, but hit us up on Twitter. If there's other things that you saw this year that you thought were cool, let us know because we love hearing what excites you as well.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We will see you next time.
All right.